What's up, everyone? This is David Greenspan, and you are listening to an all-new Season 3 of the Mindshare Podcast, a proud member of the Industry Syndicate Media Network. Additional podcasts are available at mindshare101.com and on all the major podcast platforms. This week's episode is sponsored by Kit's Keep in Touch Systems. Kits offers a fully loaded cross-channel marketing suite for the real estate industry, including tools to help you manage your business, build mindshare, and drive even more sales. You can learn more on my site, mindshare101.com, by clicking on Marketing. I also want to share that our push to 100 reviews is on. We are working to get to 100 reviews on iTunes. So here's how this works. Go to iTunes, rate the show, leave a review, and you will be entered into a draw to win a free one-to-one strategy call with me. Today's episode is number 114. He's been involved in the franchise industry for over 30 years with a focus on business development, sales, marketing, and system growth, both domestically and internationally. And as a past franchise owner, he is tuned into the challenges and opportunities in running a small business as well as a global organization. As the Vice Chairman and CEO of Centum 21 Canada, he also serves as President and Partner of Charlwood Pacific Group, CPG, which has operations in 67 countries with 24,000 plus network members under 5 brands, including Centum 21 Canada, Centum 21 Asia Pacific, Centum Financial Group, Real Property Management Canada, and UNIGLOBE Travel International. He has been involved in real estate for over 25 years. He was appointed to the Centum 21 board in 2007 and took on the role of CEO in 2014. In addition to his responsibilities with C21 Canada, he is involved in developing and managing the growth strategy for Centum 21 Asia Pacific, the organization's joint venture partner. Graduating from the University of British Columbia in 1990, he joined CPG, which was founded by his father, Gary Charlwood. He has since worked in nearly every facet of the organization and has an intricate understanding of the business from both the franchisee and franchisor perspective across multiple brands and industries. Named as one of North America's top real estate leaders on the Swanepoel Power 200 list for the past 3 years, Martin has also been featured in the Wall Street Journal and Fast Company. Additionally, he shares his leadership experience as an active member in the Young Presidents Organization, YPO, the world's premier peer network for chief executives and business leaders that focuses on developing better leadership skills through education and idea exchange. This week on the show, I am joined by Mr. Martin Charlwood to talk about powerful insights from an industry leader. Martin, welcome to the Mindshare Podcast.
David, how are you doing today, my friend?
I am doing well, my man. How are you, sir?
Doing well, but I got to tell you, as I hear that bio that you just read, I'm thinking, gee, did my office send that across? Because that's a lot of adjectives there. I'm humbled. I appreciate it. But yeah, that's quite interesting. So thanks for having me on the show. I'm delighted to be here today.
Well, absolutely. And I thank you for making the time. It's always, we always get into good conversation with each other, be it on air or off air, be it at the various events that we partake in together. And I'm grateful and humbled that, the recognition that Centum 21 has brought to Mindshare and myself and the stages you've allowed me to be on. And, a small way for me to somehow reciprocate for you, my friend, and all of the accolades that I just read off for you. Yes, they sent it to me. As we look at them, sometimes we chop these things down, but there's just too much good stuff there. So I thought we got to share it.
Well, I do appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to our conversation here today.
Absolutely, man. So tell me this, it's obviously been a very unprecedented time for, the past 12 months now in this industry. What did we learn about the market? What did we as an industry learn about the market, and even, about consumers and overall this past almost full year now? Like, go figure, it's already almost been 12 months that we're going through this.
I tell you, David, it's interesting. I want to say about September, I made myself a personal pledge. I don't want to mention the word pandemic. I don't want to mention the word, COVID or any of these kinds of things. Yet this set of circumstances continues to be here and continues to, pose challenges. But, as I reflect and as we talk to our constituents across the Centum 21 system in Canada, I think, what this has taught us is how powerful the real estate industry as a whole is in Canada, how important it is to the Canadian economy. And I think above all else, what it's shared with us and what it really has helped resonate is the fact that Canadians continue to very much believe that owning real estate is an extremely important part of who we are as Canadians and about how you actually define yourself as a Canadian. And that bodes extremely well for the industry going forward.
I think so as well. I think that, as we look at it, I mean, look, we've seen a massive climb for people that are sort of leaving the big city in this moment. And again, this is a moment in time that we're going through right now. But a lot of people leaving the big city to move out sort of north, maybe get a little bit more space and have a little bit more, place to roam based on, especially again, the moments that we're in at the right now. Now, I recently saw a headline that talked about, and I got to reference this: short-term gain, but long-term pain. And it was in direct relation to our real estate market. And I mean, look, I question this, and I've mentioned this to you before, and I've said this to so many people, but I continue to wonder, where are people getting all of this money to pay such high over asking prices? I mean, look, it's one thing if we get qualified for a certain amount, which in so many cases, I don't even understand how people get qualified for the numbers they get qualified for sometimes. But, and look, beyond getting qualified, rates are incredibly low. We know that. We know that, again, because of this lockdown, people want to move. But I guess the question becomes this: with all of the high prices and so many people paying over asking, which is typically well over market value these days, what effect do we think this is going to have on our industry, on the real estate market? Call it like over the next 5 to 10 years. What are you guys seeing from that side?
All very good questions. And I think many people have been concerned about the heat of the market, if you will, over these last, let's call it 10, 15 years. What I find interesting is that interest rates are an extremely important part of this. We all know that. And to the extent that the Bank of Canada and the rest of the world banks believe that we need to keep interest rates low, I think that bodes well long term. Obviously, we've got situations in certain key markets in Canada, the three most popular, where the average annual income compared to the average annual home is out of whack. But we do need to remind ourselves that averages that are often played out in the media take outliers and are really affected negatively by some of the high points and some of the low points. And so we need to be a little bit careful in that regard. What I do understand is that as long as interest rate stays low, and that's the main proviso that we need to understand, I think people will continue to buy and have home ownership as an important part of their plan going forward. I do think that a couple of years ago, there was a thought that perhaps, Gen Y, the new younger generations were thinking that maybe they weren't going to aspire to home ownership. And there was possible trends to the fact that if they were going to aspire to home ownership, they weren't necessarily going to need to use a realtor because they're more adept at using online tools, et cetera. And the statistics are not bearing that to be true. It's interesting. For sure, the younger generations do a lot more homework and do a lot more research on the internet before they come to buy. But once they're ready to buy, they do want to engage with a realtor because they understand that that's really an important part of the transaction process. But also, they do want to aspire to home ownership. It's really an important part of who we are as Canadians. And so from that standpoint, I think it continues to bode well for the industry as a whole going forward.
Yeah, and I mean, look, most of the signs point towards that. When we see interest rates being low the way they are, when we see people who continue to want to make these moves, I mean, we're seeing people making moves. Things are good, and we've had a resilient real estate market up here north of the border for some time. Again, there's folks that are painting doom and gloom, but I would say if I look back over the past 25 years, we've had very similar folks continuously painting doom and gloom. You know, but you just said something that resonates big time. With the younger generation and going online. We know that the numbers say somewhere between like 87 and 92% of people are starting their search online. We also know, though, how important it is to have a realtor as part of this process. And interesting, and as I say this, I'm going to bring up another point as well. So I had posted potentially yesterday, I think, I had said something about remaining relevant and the fact that video has become such a big part and technology, it's, all this COVID and lockdown has forced us even more than we were 12 months ago to go online. I think it's that much more important for realtors to really remain relevant so that they continue to prove their value in why a realtor is needed for the transaction. So just an interesting point, I guess. Maybe, I don't know if there's so much a comment there. Maybe what are you finding from that in terms of, again, that demographic? So we see that the younger generation's going online. What are we seeing in terms of habits, and maybe what are we saying to agents about remaining relevance, that the realtor continues to be the driving pillar around the transaction rather than, me going on to some classified ad and just, buying a house online? Because I don't know what I'm doing.
Uh, Very interesting hypothesis. Clearly, a big part of my background and part of the Charlwood Pacific Group is another related company we have called UNIGLOBE Travel. And when it went digital and you could buy online, people just thought travel agents were toast.
Right.
And there
Okay.
was
Perfect
exactly,
example.
is it the buggy whip business, et cetera. And the paradigm shift was substantial. And there are a lot less travel agencies today than there were back in the mid 90s before the internet came into play. And the interesting thing to note, though, is that the remaining travel agencies are doing more collective volume today, notwithstanding COVID. We have a very unusual and difficult set of circumstances there. But before the COVID pandemic hit, the volume by the remaining travel agencies is higher than it was when there were way more travel agencies there. Long and the short of it is there are very simple transactions that can be done, and they can be done online. But the minute you need more sophisticated help on a travel purchase, you want a very good quality, what we call a travel counselor. On the flip side, in real estate, for sure, the younger generations are much more savvy at initiating their own research, and they are much more informed consumers than any generation up until this time. What I would say, and what we always say to the travel counselors in our UNIGLOBE world, and what I say to all of our system members in Century 21 is, whatever technology is available out there that any consumer can get a hold of, you better darn well know what that technology is and how to use it better than your customer. And you need to use it as a tool so that when they get to that point where they need some extra help and need some patting on the back and some hand holding through what's going to be very often the biggest transaction of any person's life, that not only have you got the ability to talk intelligently about all the tools that they are aware of and have already used, but then you bring in that local knowledge. Because as we know, real estate is very local. So we always say, in addition to using all those tools, you've got to become a specialist in the market in which you represent. You got to know what the schools are like. You got to go walk those neighborhoods, drive the surrounding neighborhoods, know where the rec centers are, know where the schools are, know how far away the local restaurants are that are fun. And these are the kinds of things that you bring to the table. But long and the short of it is, I will say this: there are some people, sophisticated business people, who can easily do the research and transact a purchase of a house online, for sure. That is an infinitesimal small amount of the market. Anyone that I've ever talked to that's actually tried to go and do that, by the time they then get the lawyers involved, get the title search company involved, and get the 8 to 10 other steps involved, it ends up costing them more than the broker commission would have to the agent. And they ultimately end up paying more, thinking they were saving themselves money. Not very good use of time. To me, I always believe in outsourcing professional services to the people that know how to do it best. And I think the real key message is that you need to know all the tools that are available to your consumer. You need to know how to use them better than they do. And then you need to bring additional value-added components to the table. And I think if you take that approach, you will always be an important part of the industry going forward.
And I love what you say there, because that is exactly it, is that this is the biggest purchase of my entire life. I've got a family to take care of. It's not just myself that I'm looking out for. This is my big savings. This is a lot of money we're talking about. To just leave this up to a computer transaction, I'm with you. It's a very, very tiny amount of people that'll be able to figure their way through that. And I think that when we look at it as an industry, it's important to continue to prove the value around what your knowledge is. And so, as you say, become a specialist in the community. What's going on in the neighborhood? Become a specialist in what you do. How can you educate me around the parameters and what it really takes to be able to buy and sell real estate? And the more that we talk about instilling fear, right? Or we ask, what keeps you up at night, right? And I would say that in terms of that, it's almost, if I sat back and thought, okay, I'm about to venture into this on my own. I'm going to go buy a house and I'm going to do this online and I'm going to use one of these platforms that are available to me. I don't understand all these conditions and these clauses and all this other stuff. And I don't realize that I could potentially put myself 20, 30, 40, 50, $100,000 in the hole, just literally by making a small mistake there.
Well, not only that, you could also do something that causes you to be on the wrong end of a lawsuit by not closing on a deal, et cetera, et cetera. Totally concur on that front.
And there's part of the advantage that a realtor has because they've got that knowledge. And this is something I'm saying to everybody listening tuned in right now is leverage that, right? And it's not about saying to people, hey, I know more than you do, so just use me, but it's about what can you do to add your value out there on a
Well, and
consistent
David, I think
basis.
there's another aspect here that's really quite interesting, and this goes back to your earlier commentary.
Yeah.
Inventory is extremely tight in so many of the big markets in Canada. And
Yes.
that itself, in addition to the interest rates, is another key component of why I believe there's going to be a long-standing value holding and a value appreciation. Perhaps not at the same, slope that it has been over the last 10 or 15 years. And I think that's healthy because I think, too aggressive of appreciation year over year is not good for any market. But the long and the short of it is inventory is in completely tight availability. And so one of the other great things about dealing with a great realtor is so often they are attuned to what product may be coming on the market shortly because they've got past buyers and past sellers. And that's worth its weight in gold. And I mean, that's clearly something a very good quality realtor knows how to handle and to bring as an asset to their customer base.
Yeah, and that's a great point, and that's again one of those ways to go out there and prove your value, right, and continue to remain relevant. I mean, here, we look at, we look at Zillow, and we look at them coming into the Canadian market, and I don't think that here in Canada they took over the way they did down south in terms of the impact. Not to say they're not relevant. I don't think the impact was the same. Maybe because of just consumer buying habits. But I mean, even things like Purple Bricks, who made a big splash earlier this year. Overall, on the general sense of, with no, talking about one or the other or anything in particular, what are our thoughts on iBuyer platforms? The process itself, do we see it being beneficial? Do we see it phasing agents out? Or maybe the other question could be, how can both support each other to coexist?
FISBOs, as we refer to them over the decades of being in this industry, iBuyer, whatever iteration that may be. Again, I think there's room in the market for a small amount of them, percentage of homes sold to go that way. And some people are really keen to do that themselves. Do I believe it's going to be a massive shift in the market? Absolutely not. The marketing of and selling of a home is a complicated 20 plus step process. And anyone that's been through it, yes, some people do a number of transactions per year, but generally speaking, the average Joe or the average Jane, she does one or two transactions in their life, maybe three, and it's a complicated set of circumstances. But I think that there's a number of new platforms that are coming into the marketplace. We've talked, you and I, over the last couple of years about some of the virtual models that are now coming into place. Again, we really believe in the hybrid model. It's back to the great experience the Charlwood Pacific Group had with our sister company, UNIGLOBE, where there's a room and a time and a place for an online purchase where you just click a button and say, I want to buy. But very often things get complicated and you want to be able to shift to getting conversation going with an individual that knows more about the product than you do and can be a lifesaver in terms of time and value of what's on the table. And so to me, I think it's really important to have an opportunity to be able to balance all of those offerings. And so as it relates to, the brokerage model of the future, I think one thing that's quite interesting is that this last 12 months, what has it shown us? Our agents have become very robust at doing virtual open houses. Broker owners of the real estate offices understand that they are much more flexible in providing virtual services and weekly sales meetings virtually. And the industry can continue running. Thank goodness our government confirmed that real estate is an essential service, which clearly it is. Yep. But I think this has opened up the mind that there are better ways to potentially provide services to the agents in a brokerage office than only having real estate as the office space. And so I think you're going to see some diversion of investment in more virtual platforms, but I still believe in the camaraderie associated with having a physical office for certain aspects of what you're doing and running a successful brokerage.
Yeah, no, I look, I think that goes. I mean, I don't want to say goes without saying, because I think it's an important one that we're all feeling right now, is that exactly that we're missing each other, right? We're missing that connection point and that outlook to say, okay, well, you know what, let's take this moment in time and say, let's change the entire model. Let's change how we do everything. And let's start to go this way with virtual. look, the past 12 months, I'm going to say much the same. We all pivoted to Zoom, and now everybody's zoomed out. Speaking of, you and I are using Zoom right now to broadcast this thing, but that's the reality. And so there's going to come a point where people are going to say, you know what, enough is enough. Oh my God, really? We're getting to go back in person now? I want to go back there. And so these knee-jerk reactions to really be changing everything, I think everybody needs to take this with a grain of salt and really, what is your long-term goal? What is your long-term
I
outlook for
couldn't
the
agree
business?
with you more. And David, I think also, some of us are more social than others. I think it's pretty hard to be a successful realtor and not be a social animal because it's part of the interaction.
Yeah.
But I think what this is going to allow us to do is to recognize that certain steps in the process can be done virtually. Not every step has to be face to face. Now, of course, staying well connected to your customer is super, super important, but that doesn't mean you need to see them every single time. The whole thing, DocuSign and all that kind of stuff. I cannot believe how long it took for the industry to finally embrace that and say, yeah, this is the way we need to go in terms of documentation verification. And that makes a heck of a lot of sense. But I agree, at some point, virtual enough is enough. You got to get together over a cup of coffee, look people in the eye, and get an understanding of what might be their follow-on needs and where their heads are at and how you could be of help, possibly in the future.
Well, okay, and there's the thing there, right? Like we talk about DocuSign, and I would say that, how long it took to catch on, right? But then we got these old schoolers that have been in this business for a long time that understand what you just said of that eye to eye, to sit down over the coffee and go, let's talk this deal out. Let's actually craft this deal. Let me present my offer rather than just, at one point fax it over, which, turned into let me email it over to people. We're losing that kind of connection of the negotiation part of the deal. And I think that that's an important one. I think that that's where you can really add value for your buyers and or sellers when you can actually facilitate the negotiation. Because what do we do in this business? We help people buy and sell real estate, but we're there to market. We're there to help negotiate. We're there to help understand the legalities. And that's, again, for everybody tuned in, that's part of the value that's being brought to the table. That's what we've got to continue to convey out there to the marketplace, to the consumers, the homeowners that are out there. Now, I'm curious to know this too. And I didn't really ask you much about this before, but we've brought up UNIGLOBE a couple times now. And I'm just curious, what parallels do we see? Okay, because, and let me sort of set the stage for this one for a second, Martin. We watched movie stores up and disappear. We believed that, taxis were going to get, disappear by let's say the Uber and delivery services have become like that. And we saw the travel industry really get lumped into that same type of place. You can probably enlighten us way better. And obviously you guys are survivors, what's going on out there and you continue to win. What have folks in that industry, I guess what I'm digging for here is that parallel to almost say, hey, realtor audience that we've got tuned in right now, what can you learn from a different industry that has kind of gone through some very similar challenges when it comes to this digital technology age of potentially pushing the human being out of the equation?
I think it's a valid thinking and a concern by a number of people out there. I continue to believe that human interaction is an important part of the economy. And as it relates to whether it's the real estate industry or the travel industry, the point that I make is that if you're caught in sort of an old school way of only doing it the traditional way and, not taking advantage of any of the new developments in the industry, there's a very good chance you're going to get left behind. No doubt about that. A case in point, one of the biggest things that's come up recently in terms of, enhancing people's online profile as an agent, consumer reviews. You've got to be talking to your past clients and saying, hey, listen, by the way, if you've liked the service, is there a chance you could go on and, make a positive comment about that? Because that's an important part of establishing that you're a street worthy and credible person to do business with. And so that's an example of the kind of thing that you really need to actually embrace. As it relates to, technology forever wiping out any piece of an industry or an entire industry, I think it's difficult to substantiate that. Now, Uber has been very interesting. Mm-hmm. I, for one, have never been a huge fan of the taxi cab business. I don't care if I'm getting out of the airport in Houston and getting, trying to go into downtown Houston, or if I'm in, Rio de Janeiro and trying to get in a cab. It's usually not a very good experience. I will say, you get out of London Heathrow's airport and get into a black cab in London, it's a whole different ballgame because those guys are extremely well versed. But I think what Uber did is it used technology and it really forced people to up their game. And so that's one of the things that I would say is that if there's been any complacency in any industry, whether that's the real estate industry that we're talking about, travel, or any industry that you want to talk about, stock brokerage, insurance sales, if you've been lazy and haven't embraced the developments in technology, you're going to get hurt by that. But you've got to be aware of what's going on. You got to embrace some of that, and you got to bring that into your product offering. But I still believe in that eye to eye, as you and I just talked about, David. As much as you and I are having a good virtual conversation right here, what do we enjoy the most? When we're at a conference together and you say, hey, Martin, let's go grab a beer here. Let's have a coffee. I really want to tap your brain on this. I'm concerned about this. I want to hear your perspective. Or, hey, I'm thinking about this idea. So that's really what I believe is super important.
Now, I'm going to take that one even further. We know, okay, in most of these virtual platforms, and this goes beyond you dealing with your client, like a realtor with homeowner or whatnot, but we know in general that when we do something in a virtual sense, when we do something across social media, when we put something out there, technically speaking, it really is going out there to the world. But when you and I get to sit down at a conference and have just a you and I conversation over a pint or whatever, that's just the two of us talking. And there's a lot more that can be shared together based on whatever we're talking about. But now we're finding commonalities. We're connecting on a different level. It's just the two of us so we can have a more open conversation. And what's ultimately happening there? We're developing a stronger relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in a business full of relationships, that's what it comes down to. Hence why it is so important to continue to get out there and connect with people.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Now, as we talk about embracing technology, it's obviously beneficial to any of our businesses. What part of technology do we think is the most significant for agents to be leveraging right now to get out there, build their brand, and do more business?
Well, a couple of things. And of course, this may be a little bit of a commercial for Century 21, but I'd be remiss if I didn't at least,
go for it, my man.
lay a few things up on the table. Over the years, we're in our 45th year of business at Century 21 in Canada. We brought this business. I'm proud to say that my dad, met the guys at Century 21, the co-founder of Century 21, Art Bartlett, in 1974. The company was only 3 or 4 years old at the time. In fact, Century 21 was not yet spread all the way across the U.S. when my dad and a partner of his bought the rights to Century 21 for Canada and brought it up north of the border as the first international operation. But long and short of it is we've always been about training. And one of the things that we've always prided ourselves in at C21 is that not only can you have a successful start to your career at Century 21, because when you come in, we've got what we believe to be some of the most competitive training programs in the industry. We've also got some really great training and coaching skills available for those that are at the upper end of the market and are really quite experienced. And what this whole virtual world has shown us is that we can pivot and provide that entire, let's call it university curriculum of training virtually. So to that end, one of the things that we did very recently is we took our entire training, coaching, and marketing platform and created a new platform called campus21.tv. So the entire cadre of support materials to make you a better realtor is available online. And we've launched this and brought it together in a very, very slick looking Netflix type offering. So basically you can come on, you can choose by stream which area you need some support in. And then we broken it off in little bite-sized chunks. So if you only want 2 minutes of a little coaching piece on this little area, you can watch a 2-minute video. Or if you want to sit down and spend 30 minutes, and we've got it all indexed by category. And so to me, when you ask the question, what ought you to leverage? Used to be very cumbersome. Oh, okay, we're doing training on a quarterly basis. We're doing it in 3 cities or 6 cities across Canada. It's going to be happening on a quarterly basis. Well, now this whole thing is available to anyone. It's a little bit like Peloton and being able to have a workout in your kitchen at any given time and have a coach there face to face, right? So to me, that's what you need to be leveraging. The tools that are available to you, we think Century 21's got some of the best stuff available there, and that really will allow people to be as competitive as they possibly can be and to really win the listings and get the sales done that are important to them achieving their goals for the year.
So a big one here would be the ability to go on and get that education in there. And do the self-development. And look, we talk so much about self-development and the importance of, and I've repeated this one a lot lately, like a broken record, but I want to continue to say, because I think it's very important that, when we get hungry, We go for lunch, we go for breakfast, we go for dinner, we feed our bellies. What there's not a lot of thought about or a lot of focus on is feeding our brains. And the more education, the more time we can take to read a book, tap into a video, YouTube University. I mean, Campus 21 through C21. Any of the stuff that any of us coaches and trainers offer. I mean, any books that you can read. I love Audible. I've got Audible as an app on my phone. I love it. I read. It's that self-development. And it's amazing that, and for everybody here that's even tuned in live with us right now, and for everybody that's tuned in through iTunes and Spotify and all the other platforms as you're listening to this after the fact, I credit you. You are taking the time right now to learn and to educate and to feed your brain. Now think about this. You're going to come away with something today from this episode. What more could you come away with if you spent a little bit more time on self-development? If every day in your world you took 30 minutes to focus on a book, to focus on a video, to focus on learning, that'll average out to 24 books a year, which is more than what most people read in a year. Right. So just a little tidbit of information there, because I like what you're saying around, educate yourself. Like, this is the part of technology that you really need to embrace. And what surprises me, which is what most people would say, is, really embrace the online lead generation stuff, really embrace trying to find more business online. And again, I'll continue to come back and say, this is a relationship business. Your business is built from the people, your networks, the people I don't know how many randoms we all deal with these days, as much as going to people we know. And especially, unfortunately, in a world like we're living in, to invite a random stranger into my home right now at this moment in time, that's
very
a tough
awkward.
go. That's a tough go. Yeah. Right. But here, CREA, we see, and I'll say boards and associations, or what we'll say some of the bigger associations, whatnot, they're doing a lot of advertising to homeowners, push into their online sites. And I'm just wondering, what's the take on this? Are we seeing a push from the association? Are they trying to compete with the brands or the iBuyer options at all? Or is this just let's educate the consumer a little bit better? What's your thought on that? Have you seen any of those?
I would hope that the main push is to educate the consumer, and to the extent that we fund CREA by the payments that we make, all of us as agents and brokers into that's the goal. We want them to basically help raise the awareness of the value of a realtor in the transaction going across Canada. Personally, I think it's better that training and the other parts of becoming a successful realtor ought to be left to the brokerages, the brands, etc., and that should be done on a local basis. I prefer CREA to be a better lobbying arm for us to the federal government. I think that's a much better use of those resources. But having said that, obviously it's important to work in conjunction with CREA, but we want to make sure we're not competing with each other, but that we're value add on both sides. But if I could for a second, I just want to pivot back to one of the conversations or just reflect back on one of the conversations earlier about, what should a realtor be looking to take advantage of in the current circumstances? And I think one of the things that's super important is that it's complicated out there. There are so many different, websites, lead generation programs, client testimonial platforms, video services, et cetera, that are available. Let me just kill that phone there. I don't know why that's coming on. That's my private phone here. Give me a second.
No problem, man. No problem. You see, where I'm going right now is I'm trying to figure out, what tools should people be leveraging? Where should we be going with technology? Sorry, go ahead there, Martin.
Yeah, sorry. It was a separate phone.
Yeah, that's good, man.
On a different line. Given how complicated it is to determine what are the best tools that are available to you, I think it's really important to align yourself with a brokerage or a brand that has actually done all that homework for you. Wouldn't it be a lot easier to say, okay, what's best in class, or what are the right platforms that I ought to use? Because I'm not really a technical person. I may know a little bit about this stuff, but it would be great if I just had some of those decisions already easily made, and I can just plug into it so that I can spend my time networking with my sphere of influence. Because you've mentioned this a couple of times, David. That's really what it's all about. How can you get out to your sphere of influence? How can you get approval from them, given the castle's rules and all that kind of stuff, to permission market to them in a value-added way, so that you're actually providing information to them that's of interest to them, is targeted to what they're actually looking for, and that they're excited to receive, because you're just providing new knowledge about potentially helping them get into a new home down the road. And if much of that decision making is already done, then you can focus on the important part of building your network and getting out and doing your listing presentations and talking people eye to eye. And so to me, that's a really important thing. Why spend a bunch of time doing the research to figure that all out yourself? Align yourself with a brand like Century 21 that's already done a lot of that homework for you. Now,
Go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, case in point, we're just about to launch our new platform called Hub 21.
Mm-hmm.
We're partnered up with MoxieWorks on this. We're super excited about this coming out in the by the end of the first quarter, and we're going to have the entire soup to nuts of everything all integrated into one platform, from websites to client testimonials to video platforms, and this is just going to allow you to plug and play. And then the other important thing as well is we know how important marketing is these days, right? And we have a marketing center connected to our platform that allows an agent with relatively few clicks to put together customized brochures or feature sheets for when they're back doing either physical or virtual open houses. And this just makes their job so much easier rather than trying to muddle around with all that technological stuff. And we think that's a really great play and makes it a lot easier to have people focus on the important things when they're running their book of business.
And the important things being the book of business, exactly that, right? So let me ask you this then, because we know that lead gen being a just overall umbrella these days, it's a big topic. Again, the way I see it, agents are still getting the majority of their business from the old school belly to belly relationship business. As the big brand though, where do you think that agents should be focused on their day to day? And I think you've just said that to us, focus on your book of business, right? What are we saying to agents now though about marketing themselves? So, we know that there's that ability to have technology there, and there's some wonderful platforms available. You guys are launching something cool, and it's, when we look at the channels that we need to focus on and what we're doing, what channels we're using to get our messages across, where are we seeing the majority of agents get the majority of their business from? And what particular channels are we seeing that come through? Did that make sense?
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I think it's super. When we say sphere of influence, the whole point is if you can have a wonderful relationship with an existing customer, help either sell their home or find a buyer a new home, and use them as a referral and have them be your advocate, that is the absolute most powerful way. Think about when you're heading to you're going on a trip to Hawaii, or you're going on a ski trip to Aspen, and you just were there, David. Tell me, what were your top 3 restaurants? That's just so much more binding of a recommendation than going on Yelp and looking for, what's the greatest restaurant, suggestion here, etc. And to me, hey, listen, I'm just thinking about listing my house. What realtor have you used? I think that's really important about having a really tight database. Yeah. From there, going forward, you just want to make sure that you're aligned with a brand. I think that not only has a good local presence, but also has the ability to give exposure to your property on a much bigger network. As you well know, we like to pride ourselves, not only is Century 21 strong in Canada, we're one of the biggest brands in the entire world. We've got offices in 85 countries around the world. I think it's probably 86 now. And we've got agents involved in a website, century21global.com, and we can provide exposure to your property in much bigger markets than just your local market. But I do think it's important that you focus on not just the local, but also the international. To answer your specific question there, David, though, I still believe that it's important for a national brand to develop a brand that has got consumer awareness out there in the realtor marketplace. And I still think that the agents ought to do a better job focusing on their existing book of business and their sphere of influence. I think that's a better use of return on investment.
I really love the way you said that. And I remember it brought me back to, I think it's when we were in Victoria for 1C21. And I made a comment on stage about, you could be driving down the street and I could see like a random sign, and I may not develop this. I don't know you and I don't know the company. You're not getting very close to me yet because there's just no know you, like you, trust you whatsoever built. Whereas I could be driving down the street and all of a sudden I see a reputable brand such as Century 21, and I look and I may not know the person on the sign, but I know the company, and I am immediately, there's that trust factor that says, well, these people are real. They are an established brand, and I know that if this person's working for that company, is the person 100% who knows, but the brand certainly is. It's built its reputation out there in the marketplace, and that's where the trust comes in. So now back to the agent itself is we look and say, okay, There's one thing to say, I'm going to go and try to generate leads online. And look, I will say this: if you've got the right support system in place, if you put the right tools in place, if you've connected every dot along the way and budgeted it for it correctly, and you can carve out something in your schedule and your budget to say, look, I'm going to go after uh, random people, leads, new people, new business to try to bring them into my funnel, then fine, go for it. But if we haven't figured out, how to cross every T and dot every I, and we haven't budgeted accordingly, we are, I mean, not the big brand, not you guys, but us as, let's say, the individual agent, we are a small business. There's only so much money we can spend on this stuff. And so now
Exactly.
back to where's your ROI? Your ROI really comes from the people in your database. So even if you are going to go down this road of leveraging lead gen and social and online, always feeding people back into the database, because that's the book. That's where you're going to build your trust factor with
Oh,
people.
and making sure your data, I mean, this is just obvious, but people forget this, making sure your database is accurate.
Oh my
And
God.
and also any little tidbits you pick up from your customer, make notes of that. Remember the birthdays, remember the names of the kids, and any little snippet that you remember from conversations you've had with them. Make notes of this stuff. And then that builds the rapport and the relationship. I think that's just so absolutely crucial and probably more powerful than having your name on the side of a bus or on a bus stop in any local community, in my view.
Well, listen, I'm going to tell you, I compare exactly the bus stop and the bus bench and all those things. I compare them exactly to those online ads, right? When I'm scrolling social media, I'm looking through my email, I'm going through a website, I see an ad. It's the same thing. I'm driving down the street and I happen to see this ad that I didn't ask for that just happens to be there. What is it going to do for you? And you being the
Yeah.
holistic, like whoever put it out there. Again, I'm not saying it doesn't work, but if we don't have the right, cookie crumb trail of what am I going to do to actually capture the lead? So,
And how are you
what is
going to
my message
follow
saying?
up?
How am I
Exactly.
capturing the lead? What am I doing with the lead? How am I converting the lead? Now it's just another ad, right? I remember asking a client of mine, Martin, one day we were talking, one of my coaching clients, and I was whiteboarding all of his marketing plan and everything else. And we looked and he's doing a fair bit amount of marketing and spending a fair bit amount of dollars on his marketing. And when I said to him, I said, okay, so you've got about 97% of your marketing budget that's going to group number two, these strangers. I said, I'm willing to bet you're probably seeing somewhere between like 10 to 30% of your business from this group. He goes, no. I said, oh, what are your numbers? He says, 4%. You're spending 97% of your marketing budget on the group that's bringing you 4% of your business. He goes, yeah. I said, so you've got all this stuff out there. Why? And he just kind of looked at me. I said, I know why. He goes, why? Said, you, when you're driving down the street, you like to see yourself on that bench. And he sat back in his tie. He goes, man, you shoot straight. I said, what do you want me to tell you? It doesn't make sense to me, right? We have for years found, and anybody will attest to this, that a successful longevity in this business, your database is your gold mine.
No, absolutely. And of
Got
course,
to feed
I
it.
mean, let's not kid ourselves too, David. Ego is a big part of the real estate industry, and we get that, and I understand those elements. But I agree. Track where you spend your marketing dollars, and then do the research to confirm what's your ROI on that. I mean, you hit the nail on the head right there. I totally agree with you. Now, of course, the bus stop companies and those advertising companies, they're not, they don't want you to be having this kind of a
No.
conversation. With your coaching program and all of that stuff, David. I know you're on it.
Hey man, somebody in this industry, somebody's got to say it, right? So I just want to make sure that people understand where they're supposed to get it from. But here's another one then, and I've had this one many times with the with different folks around branding. Should agents leave it up to the brand to do the big advertising push, and or should they keep developing their own individual brands to grow that real estate business into a actual business? And we've seen a lot of that. And I mean, I come right back to that, right? And we brought up ego. If I'm driving down the street and I see a Century 21 sign, reputable, like immediately, there's no guessing. I don't need to know who you are, what you do. Like I get it. I know what you do. When I go and create my own logo and my own color scheme, I take away from all of that stuff. What's our thoughts on that in terms of sort of the individual brand? Maybe does it tie into ego a little bit? Do we think it detracts from the opportunities? I mean, do we want people to continue using the brand colors? I would say, just from my marketing background, brand colors and brand integrity is very important.
I think it's a very interesting and can be a very long topic.
Yeah, for sure.
Obviously, teams and high producers have created a book of business and a valuable asset in what they do in the marketplace. And there's some sense to be made with developing your own team logo and your own, individual marketing. But personally, I think it is much more powerful to couple that with a national brand, or in Century 21's case, an international brand. Now, one thing I'll say is, you can see my background here. We've got Century 21. We've gone through a new global rebranding. We did that a couple of years ago. For those that are not new to the industry, you'll know forever we were the black and gold company. And realistically, our brand really hadn't changed for 35 or 40 years. And in end of the first quarter of 2018, the parent company of Century 21 released a brand new brand. And we think that this is one of the best things that's ever happened to the organization. It's created a really great tailwind. It is a much more fresh and relevant brand. It's attractive to much wider set of demographics, be that age demographics or ethnicity demographics or gender demographics. And from that standpoint, what we're finding is that a number of our top producers and teams and offices are getting more excited about coupling their individual team brand with our international brand. So I think that's a really big win. But can an individual ever match the power of, the brand of Century 21, given that it's one of the most recognizable real estate brands on the planet? No, I don't think so. Now, of course, it's super important to make sure that your local community, whether we're talking about, Toronto and you're, in Richmond Hill and you want that focus and you want to let the people in Richmond Hill know that you're the big smoke. Okay, I understand some of that element, but I just think it's much more powerful to couple it. And I think you get a knock-on effect when you couple it with a global brand.
Well, and I'll piggyback on that exactly and say that if you're looking to go out there and really build, let's say, a farm neighborhood in a community presence, if you want to make an impact in terms of who is the trusted, well, we talk in the sales world, right? Trusted advisor. You want to hit that top peak so that you're that person that people look at and say, and I use this example a lot as well, but I want to go get a burger in that neighborhood. I'm going to call this particular realtor because I know they don't sell burgers, they sell houses, but they know everything that's going on. They're going to know the best place to go. Again, what we're doing is we're piggybacking on these random people, these group number two people we don't know, by leveraging these big brands, the Century 21 brand, the colors, the logos, the look, the feel, to build that trust factor. And that's where you can grow a lot quicker, I believe. And I think that that's also where you try to leverage if you're going to go down that online model in terms of lead generation and really just trying to pull in people from there. You got to leverage the big brand. Otherwise, who are you?
No, it's a missed opportunity, in my view. One of the analogies that I often make, David, is Starbucks. Whether you're a fan of a Tim Hortons in Canada, whether you're a fan of your local multi-unit coffee shop, or whether you like the Starbucks brand, they got really clever a number of years ago, and they started to drop kiosks in. And basically, they got the consumer trained to say, you just look for the logo, right? And as soon as you see that Starbucks logo, you may be staying at a Westin, pick whatever hotel chain you may be at, and you walk into the lobby, and also you look across and you see, it's not a full Starbucks office, a barista station, but you see the coffee shop, you see Starbucks, instantly that brand makes you understand high quality coffee. We believe Century 21 is getting ready to celebrate its global 50th anniversary. That's this year. It started in 1971, as I mentioned, by Art Bartlett. We started 5 years later, but we've got 50 years of history here. Why would you want to fight that? That's just a great thing. And I think personally, with our slick new and modern relevant branding, I think it's just a missed opportunity, and we're really getting good support in that regard. And our groups are really, really enjoying co-branding with us. And I think that's the right way to go going forward.
I love the analogy with the Starbucks, because you're so right. I mean, you see the golden arches, there's I mean, whether you're into the fast food thing or not, you know what you're getting. You see Starbucks, and it could be anywhere. I mean, they could have literally a little, counter set up with the pump. But if you see Starbucks, you're like, hey, it's just like you said, it doesn't have to be a barista anymore. You go to
I'm not a fast food guy, David. So McDonald's is probably not the analogy. And I know you kind of caught yourself in that.
It's
McDonald's and these other sort of fast food companies, they're trying to bring healthier fare to the market. But what I would say about Starbucks and why they were such a great model with Howard Schultz, that guy that bought the brand from that small mom and pop shop out of a Pike Place Market in Seattle and then took it globally. They recognized how to elevate and give a quality experience in a $4 cup of coffee, right? It's sort of upmarket in the coffee field. Well, I feel the same way about what we do in Century 21. We're known as a global real estate powerhouse. It's one of the most recognized real estate brands in the world. And so to parallel and associate yourself with that, I think just makes a whole lot of sense. And I think for whatever marketing dollars you're spending in your local marketplace to build your own personal brand, it just gets a massive multiplier effect when you associate it with a brand like Century 21, especially when you got great new, materials to work with.
And I love the fact that you brought up Schultz with Starbucks. It wasn't the push wasn't to sell high quality coffee as much as it was to create a place between work and home that people could come to enjoy. And he created an experience, as you said. And that experience is what took Starbucks to become Starbucks. So much the same now to everybody else here now. What can you do and what are you doing to create an experience for your client base, for your community that is going to bring people in to look at you and say, I would want to deal with that person, or I want to deal with that person, or I would certainly refer that person because you know what? The experience is second to none and I feel valued. Right. And this comes right back to where we started today around remaining relevant and around, leveraging technology, but understand the importance of our database and the people that are around us, because they really are our biggest fans.
Totally agree.
I guess as we sort of, we're closing off here, just keeping an eye on the clock. What big message are we looking to drive home to agents as we journey through 2021?
We let off with it. I love it. This could have been 2020, one of the most difficult years in the history of real estate, right? Of course, we were all excited. We're thinking, the roaring 20s. Ta-da, this is going to be great. And then all of a sudden, February unfolds into March, and we're like, well, this is not the roaring 20s we were expecting.
No.
People got really spooked. That first, let's call it, 4-8 weeks. Oh my goodness, what is this going to mean to my business? Are people going to stop going to open houses? Is the real estate market going to grind to a halt? Well, luckily, we pivoted as an industry. We managed to figure out very quickly using the tools available. We're happy that Century 21 had already invested in and done the homework and figure out what all those tools were. And we provided them very quickly in a virtual world to our front line. And they were able to pivot and do virtual open houses. And basically, tickety-boo, the real estate market just kept going forward. So what the first point that I would like to make is that what this pandemic has driven home is that the real estate industry is a viable and important part of the Canadian economy. First point. Second point, based on the transaction volumes that we've seen this year over last, 2020 over 2019. If you look at what we dealt with and the fact that transactions continue to happen at an incredibly great pace, people still aspire to home ownership in Canada. And given our inventory shortfalls, I think that's always going to set a floor on the market. And on the assumption that the Bank of Canada understands that they've got to keep interest rates kind of in the realm where we sit today, I think that bodes extremely well for the industry. What I do also think about, not just for people that are already in the industry, I think what we're going to see here is that so many people that were in other industries that sadly got really negatively affected by the pandemic. Let's talk about hospitality. Let's talk about restaurants. Let's talk about travel and many others. I think this is going to be an eye-opener for people to say, hey, we ought to consider getting into real estate. And I think we're going to hopefully see an influx of a whole new set of quality prospects to become new agents, and not just ones that want to sell 5 or 6 houses a year, but actually want to embrace this. And I think that's going to be really good for our industry, a whole influx and a new set of agents into the system. One thing I can also say to you, David, I think when you look at the statistics, the average age of a realtor across North America, including Canada, is 57 years old. And one of the things that really has come to fruition in these last few months, this last 12 months, with the onset of the technological tools available, et cetera, is that this is an eye-opener for people that are much younger to get into this industry. And I'm hoping we'll have an influx of younger people and we can bring that average age down. And I'd like to say that Century 21 is a good home for those of you that are planning on coming into this industry. Not only if you're a newbie, but if you're thinking about switching brands, we think we've got great things to offer here. We're excited. As I've said on a number of occasions, 2021, it's the year for Century 21. And we're very excited to be driving that message home.
Well, very cool. And I'm sure I saw something from Chiyoko yesterday talking about, something. She had like this reference to 21, 21, 21, 21. I thought, oh, look at that, bang on, right? And I want to give you a big congrats. You got an amazing team there. And I know if I tried naming everybody, I'm totally going to leave some people off. So I don't want to go down that road and just say your leadership team is absolutely amazing. You guys do a phenomenal job. And I myself, along with my team, with Mindshare 101 and Kits, we're always very, very excited to be working with Centum 21 Canada, and we're looking forward to a very exciting year with you guys this year. All that being said, Martin, where can people find you if anybody wanted to connect, or if anybody wanted to learn more? Where should they go if they were listening to you and they got inspired? What can they do for a little bit more?
Well, we're excited. Come to any of the functions that we have. I'm often available through our Facebook at Centum 21, and also on a lot of the webinars that we offer. Chioko, who's our marketing chief, and a number of the other team members at head office, we are doing regular webinars. As you know, we pivoted right at the start of the pandemic, and I'm often a key contact and presenter in some of that stuff. So we're just super happy to invite anyone that wants to learn more about Centum 21 to make contact with us. And I'm very delighted to have participated with you here today, David. Hopefully there was some food for thought there. And I look forward to when we get the chance, David, to break bread or hoist a coffee or a glass of wine and do that in person. And hopefully that's going to be happening sooner rather than later here in 2021.
I can't wait, man. I know every time we get together, it's always a good time. And I will attest to the fact that you are very visible when we're at these events. You are there, you are talking with people, you are involved. And I think that shows a tremendous amount of leadership. So I wish you guys all the best for an amazing, amazing year. I thank you once again for making the time today. Martin, thank you for joining me.
Awesome. Great seeing you. And I'm looking forward to our next encounter, my friend. And like I said, hopefully in person and hopefully not too far from now.
I'm looking forward to it, man. You're either listening to this on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify. Or maybe you downloaded our free Industry Syndicate podcast app, or maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. And while you're on my site, make sure to download your free copy of the Ultimate Marketing Bundle for Realtors. This is a 31-page ebook packed with a ton of tips and tricks for you. Plus, there's a ready-to-go 90-day social media content calendar to help you build more mindshare so that you can get more market share. And if you want to talk about personalized one-to-one coaching to help you get to your next level, just get in touch with me. We'll set up a free consultation call to learn more about what you're looking to achieve and, well, how I will help you do just that. Also, don't forget our push to 100 is on, so be sure to go to iTunes, subscribe to the show, leave a review, rate us, and you will be entered into a draw for a free one-to-one strategy coaching call with me. And if you haven't yet, connect with me on Facebook at Mindshare101 and on Instagram at DavidGreenspan101. I want to once again thank our sponsor, Kits Keep in Touch Systems, for sponsoring today's episode. If you haven't checked us out yet, just go to my site and click on Marketing. This has been another episode of the Mindshare Podcast. Thank you for tuning in.